Hello everybody and welcome to your 12th lesson from the first topic of an introduction to media, and this lesson is all about the radio. As this is our final lesson on this topic, it's the final chance to update your personal learning checklist. So this is something that we did right at the beginning of the topic of work and we did around about the middle. So this is the final one to go. Hopefully by the end of this lesson you should be able to have ticked all of these sentences up into the green or at least into the amber columns. Again, this is why it's really important to include the date. So you should already, on your personal learning checklist for this topic, your first personal learning checklist, you should have already ticked this with two different dates. When we started the course, you'll have ticked off some of these sentences, and I'm sure most of them at that point would have been red and amber with that first date. There should then be a second set of ticks, potentially in another colour, that has a new date on them, and that was about halfway through, so hopefully by then you would have seen some progress with your understanding of this topic content. And now you should be able to go back through and tick them again and hopefully be able to move them all up into the green column. Don't forget that you can revisit this in another week, 2-3 weeks time, and make sure you've fully covered everything that's listed within this grid. So take a few minutes now just to go through it and tick off and move forward any of those that you can. For our first activity, what I want you to do is consider what types of radio program actually exist. Now, I know a lot of you might not listen to the radio, so you might have to go online and do some research. Or those of you that do listen to the radio often, perhaps in the car on the way to school, then you'll have some understanding of the different types of radio program that exist. Spend a few minutes now trying to come up with as many as possible, and you can do this as a bullet pointed list, as a spider diagram, or in any creative way you can see possible. Here we have our title slide for this lesson, and as you can see, our title is The Radio. In the bottom left, as always, you can see our topic number and lesson number. This is still topic number 1, an introduction to the media, but this is our final lesson on the topic, lesson number 12. You can see our learning objective here is to consider the history of the radio, its evolution, and the place of radio in a modern setting. We have 3 success criteria, as always, basic, moderate and advanced, and hopefully by the end of this lesson you will have explored the conventions of a contemporary radio programmes. You'll have explored a history of the radio and examined the start of the BBC and the idea of pirate radio, and hopefully, fully by the end, you will consider the impact of digital technologies and e-media on the radio.
How long has this been in your head for?
About 3 weeks. And I want to, yeah, I know. I'm getting married at the weekend and I wanted to play at the wedding and I just don't know what it is. I feel like it's got Can You Feel It in it, but
All right.
I say this to people and they're like, oh, is it Michael Jackson? I'm like, no, it's not that.
No.
So, it goes, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I think it's like a 70s rock song, or it could be 90s, I've no idea.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you do it again?
Yeah, sorry, it just broke up there, Marcus.
It's obvious what it is, Marcus.
Yeah.
I just can't do my head in.
All right, let me see if we can play you. Let me see if we can play you something. Okay.
Yep.
Lots of people are texting in thinking it might be this, and how they've got that from what you sung, I've no idea.
I thought I sang really well.
I don't think this is right, but everybody's texting this in. Just wait, Marcus. Wait, ready?
I'm waiting. Yes, that's it. What is it?
Do you think that's it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Let's see if it works with your. Marcus, we might have found it for you. We might have found it. Are you ready? And then it's got that lovely little breakdown bit where it goes. And then the police have come for you. So we found it for you.
Please tell me what it is.
How good is that? Well, listen, congratulations, Marcus.
Lovely to speak to you, Marcus.
I'm really pleased for you. I hope you have a lovely wedding as well. Who are you marrying? Who are you marrying?
I'm marrying my beautiful girlfriend, Grace.
Grace. Oh, beautiful name.
Yeah.
And you're getting married on what, Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday.
Okay, well, have a lovely, lovely day.
Mate,
it's the
please
most
tell me
important day of your life.
That's
Send
it.
our love to Grace.
That's running out of time. Look,
I'm glad that we've helped you out. This has been a lovely, lovely
Please tell me
moment.
the song. Please.
All right, I'll tell you. The song is called Groovers in the Heart.
Yeah.
It's by...
In the heart.
Da, 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 da. I'll get to the chorus, see if it even rings a bell.
Oh yeah, I'm not playing this at the wedding.
Yeah, it's quite heavy.
Yeah. So who is it?
Who is it?
Exactly right.
That's the question.
That's the question we're asking today.
You guys.
I tell you what, it's a hell of a first dance. I don't think Grace would be impressed.
No, I don't think you would. We could move a bit to it.
Here we go. Don't feel it. That's where you feel it came from. And then he sings
Okay.
Inside. If you believe it. Yeah. So Marcus, after all that, who is it?
I don't know.
All right, I'll put you out of your misery. I was so tempted to cut you off. That is a track called Inside by the band Stiltskin.
Thank you.
It was famously used on I think a Levi's advert, and then it went to number one.
Probably...
I got in the chart.
I know one of the guys in Stiltskin as well. It's called Peter Lawler. I used to work with him
Dom. That's
back
really
in the day.
impressive.
Yeah, so Peter Lawler. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, shove it, Marcus.
Whatever.
The Chris Moyle Show.
As some of you may be unfamiliar with modern radio broadcasts, I thought it might be appropriate to show you this clip that I found on YouTube, which explores how a channel called Radio X, how they produced their radio programs. Bearing in mind this is a very modern way of producing the radio, not just in the feel and technology within the studio, but also the fact that it was filmed and videoed and put on YouTube for further enjoyment and engagement with the audience. This is an example of digital convergence, where video content accompanies broadcasts that are being posted online. So it's not just a radio product, it's also an e-media product. After exploring modern examples of radio programs, you should be able to list in detail the conventions of a radio program. So what are the common features of a radio show? Based on your own experience and what you've researched already this lesson, do you think the radio is still a popular form of entertainment? So as a platform, do you think radio is still widely listened to? And types of radio programs that exist, do you think they are still popular as a form of entertainment with different types of audiences? A good way to attack this is to think about who listens to the radio, what they might listen to, where they would listen to it, whether that's the car or on a podcast, and what are the advantages to radio as opposed to television or a streaming service. I want you to take 5 minutes now to think about these questions and try and formulate some kind of answers. A research study by CBAA in 2017 said that people aged between 15 and 24 years are more likely to listen during drive time. So that's in the car, on the way or way home from school or work. While people who are 25 to 39 years and 40 to 54 years, so anybody kind of older than that, are more likely to listen during breakfast time. People aged over 55 are more likely to listen in the mid-morning. The radio is live, and therefore it has a level of personality. The presenters within a program will provide some sort of live commentary. There's a sense of community because you know that other people are listening to the same thing at the same time. And it provides content that you may not choose for yourself. So you're not going onto a streaming service and picking a song for yourself. You're hearing what other people are providing. Let's take a look at a brief history of the radio and its place within the contemporary media landscape. So the very first transmission of a wireless sound was actually Morse code, and this was in 1895 by a man called Giulio Marconi. The first experiments with voice and music were in the early 1900s, and by 1920 the wireless was one of, if not the main sources of news and entertainment. Remember, in the 1920s, television had yet to be invented, and there was certainly no computers or e-media or any kind of modern media that we would know about today. During the 1940s, specifically during World War II, the radio was a lifeline of communication for audiences. Not only did it give them news and information about the war, but also it was the only real form of entertainment that was accessible to the mass audience. During the 1950s and 60s, we saw the birth of pirate radio, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in this lesson. And in the 1990s, digital radio was launched, which was a new form of technology to create or to produce the radio signal and to distribute the radio across the world. This actually allowed for a lot more channels, a lot more what we call pluralism. Lots of different types of media could now be, and specifically radio, could now be made and targeted to different audiences. In the 1920s, specifically in 1922, it was the BBC who began the first radio service in the UK. And the BBC stands for the British Broadcasting Corporation. You're more probably familiar with the BBC as being TV channels, but they did start as a broadcaster of radio. Lord Reith, who's pictured here, was the first director of the BBC, and his vision and his influence is still largely what the BBC is based on today. He insisted that all broadcasts educate, inform and entertain the people of the UK, and he put it in that order for a specific reason. He felt that education was the most important service that the BBC should be providing. Also, it can be used to inform people and lastly to entertain. He also demanded a very high standard of morals and values. He insisted that all broadcasters were to work in a full suit and tie, even though at this point we were talking purely about radio, so no one could actually see them. And he very much insisted upon the Queen's English and southern posh accents. He felt that anything that was a subculture or created rebellion should be banned. So pop music, popular music, swearing or anything controversial was definitely not allowed on any kind of radio service. It was classical music, and bearing in mind that this was to educate and inform and entertain the people, he felt this was a way of lifting up lowbrow or low culture and the working classes into a higher state of education. So opera and anything of high moral value or high moral standard that was considered to be by Lord Reith. Continuing with the history lesson just slightly, a few more broadcasting services from the BBC were launched over the years. BBC Radio Home was broadcast between 1939 and 1967. So this was a particular specific broadcast which was for educational programmes and the news. It was mainly speech based. There were music and drama type programmes, and this was eventually replaced by Radio 4. BBC Radio Light from 1945 till 1967, which was mainly light entertainment. So there were comedy shows and dramas and lots of music, and this eventually was replaced by Radio 2. And then there was BBC Third, and this was 1946 to 1970, and this was supposed to be broadcasting intellectual and arts-based talk and music, so very highbrow, and this eventually was replaced by Radio 3. The main element of radio from the BBC was the BBC Home service, and the first broadcasts were very, very formal. You can see here some imagery of people listening to the radio, and it was actually a family event. Almost like how we would watch TV as a family now, people would sit around and watch the same programme at the same time, although that is becoming more and more rare these days, what with personal tablets and mobile phones and multiple devices in the home. But back in when the BBC Home Service was started in the 1920s and 30s, the radio was the only form of entertainment, so children would sit in front of it and listen, and families would gather round and listen together. There was also an idea of this thing called needle time. So the law was that a radio station was actually only allowed to broadcast 5 hours of music in any 24-hour period. Now this was considered to be because of the influence music might have on people. Today we talk about the effect of, say, violent computer games on people. Well, back in these times, people were talking about the effect of music on people. So Lord Reith and the powers that be decided that there was a limit of only 5 hours of music in a 24-hour period. So this would be broken down across those 24-hour period and mixed in with news, talk shows, dramas and comedies and programs like we would watch on TV, but just spoken. It's no surprise that after this, in the 1950s, there was a real desire for some more light-hearted and less formal radio. The Second World War was over, the younger generations were becoming more disillusioned with the conservative, stuffy ways of their parents. Unfortunately, the government had decided that, as radio was an official wartime technology, only one public licence could be issued, and it was illegal to broadcast a radio signal in the UK without a licence. In the early 1960s, when pop music and teenage culture was dramatically shifting, a group of people found a loophole in the law. They created a radio station based on a boat anchored just outside of British territory. They were technically not in the UK, but their radio broadcasts reached the mainland. Not only was the station more laid back and youth friendly, but it was out of the reach of the regulators, so pirate radio didn't have to adhere to needle time or any of the conservative and stuffy ways that Lord Reith had imposed. Many stories have been told about this renegade group of radio broadcasters and pirate radio, and you're about to see a trailer for a film called The Boat That Rocked, which explores the excitement and thrill and kind of rock star celebrity status that these radio DJs enjoyed.
In 1966, there were 571 American radio stations blasting rock and roll 24 hours a day. But in the country that gave you the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, the only way to hear the music was to tune in to a boat.
You're listening to Radio Rock and I'm the Count. And I'm counting on you as we count down to ecstasy. Rock on!
They were called pirates.
Pirate radio.
They are a sewer of dirty, low morals.
Could I introduce Carl?
Hi, I'm Angus.
I'm the Count.
Oh, I'm a lesbian.
You know what a lesbian is?
I do.
Fun times, eh?
The fans made them famous.
Wow. You think you could ever love a man with a funky Fu Manchu?
No.
I could shave it.
The government made them outlaws.
The drug takers and the law breakers and the bottom-bashing agitators.
I will soon be the first person to curse on rock and roll radio.
But they risked it all.
You can't do this.
Why not? We're pirates. That's why we're sitting out here in the middle of the friggin' ocean.
For the music they love.
Goodbye! We're going to shut them down. They can't close us down.
They will find a way. Governments loathe people being free.
From midnight on New Year's Eve, Radio Rock will be breaking the law.
From Richard Curtis.
Tonight, pirate radio dies.
Creator of 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
This isn't gonna happen.
They will come after us.
Let them try.
And Love Actually.
We thought we'd never die, but you can't fight City Hall. 3, 2, 1. Only kidding, dudes! Let's rock!
This summer, from Universal Pictures, comes a comedy about a time
These are the best days of our lives.
when love couldn't be silenced
The first moment I saw you, I fell in love with you.
and music could change the world.
Young men and young women will always dream dreams and put those dreams into song.
The boat that rocked.
I can see why you wanted that condom.
What?
Night-night.
What did he just say?
Night-night.
So that's the birth of pirate radio, a radio station which broadcast without a licence. And they got the name Pirates because they were largely based on boats that were just outside of UK territory but broadcasting into the UK. Because many of these stations were already illegal in the UK, they didn't always pay the royalties and the usage rights for the music. So when we talk about things being pirated with other forms of media, pirate videos, pirate DVDs and things like that, then that's where we get that saying from, because it wasn't always legal. Throughout the 1960s, pirate radio was extremely popular, but why do you think that is? Spend a few minutes now and try and come up with some ideas that would explain why youth audiences wanted to listen to pirate radio. Younger audiences didn't necessarily agree with the repressive traditions that their parents held. They didn't enjoy and align themselves with what their parents' ideologies and beliefs and values were. And there was certainly nothing that spoke to them as a group of people, as a collective group of people, on normal traditional radio. Also, people just don't like being told what they can and can't do, particularly what you can and can't listen to. Many audiences felt that there was just nothing with the BBC or traditional radio for them. Legal radio as well was not quite quick enough to play new music, and rarely played any kind of subculture or urban music, which was highly trendy and what youth audiences enjoyed. Pirate radio had a much more personal and local feel. So the government wanted to regulate and control the radio, and older generations also felt that rock and pop music was a negative influence, which refers back to when we did some work on moral panics. With the government wanting to control and regulate the radio, and pressure from parent groups about the potential dangerous impact of certain types of music on their children, several laws and policies were passed through government. So the Wireless Telegraphy Act in 1967 made it illegal to listen to an unlicensed broadcast. Because they were struggling to go over the pirates in their boats moored in just offshore, they had to kind of come up with ways to hamper their efforts. So they decided, in their ultimate wisdom, to make it illegal to tune in to one of these broadcasts. And this obviously made criminals out of the everyday person. A teenager sat in their bedroom trying to tune in to a pirate radio station was actually breaking the law. This obviously had some effect, but to a lot of younger audiences it actually just made the whole thing a lot cooler and made the risk seem more rebellious, and actually made them want to listen to it even more. Also in 1967, the Marine Offences Act was enabled, which made it illegal to operate any offshore broadcast aimed at British territory, but only if you're a British citizen. They couldn't go after any foreign counterparts or any foreign nationals. They could only go after British citizens. Much later on, the Wireless Telegraphy Act was updated because obviously technology had advanced and culture had changed and society had moved forward. And if you consider the context that all of this is put into, a lot of the values and ideologies of the British public had vastly changed over the last 50 years. So the new Wireless Telegraphy Act, the updated version, made all previous laws consolidated under this one. So the Marine Offences Act, the Wireless Telegraphy Act, many other different acts of Parliament were kind of all consolidated into this one policy. And that policy was fairly straightforward. It is illegal to broadcast in or to the UK using any technology without a licence. And they managed to get that passed so they could legally go after anybody who was flouting or breaking those rules. So after 1967 and the Wireless Telegraphy Act and the Marine Offences Act, the government was starting to realise that they couldn't kind of maintain the attack on youth audiences. And youth audiences were also getting older and becoming adults. So the government felt that they had won the battle against pirate radio, and the pirate radio broadcasters were all shut down. But the BBC had realised that they needed to cater for the British public and its changing attitudes. So some of Radio Caroline's presenters, that was one of the main pirate radios, some of the presenters from that were hired, and the launch of BBC Radio 1 began, a radio station, a radio channel aimed at younger audiences. So we're going to play a few clips now to show you how BBC One started and the kind of sounds that you would have heard. Obviously, technology has developed and the idea and concept of the radio has had to change as well, not just with technology, but also with the changing needs of the audience. So how has e-media and digital technology changed the radio? One problem pirate radio faced was because they were moored off of British territory, they only had a small broadcast range, so it was only really coastal towns and villages that could actually receive the signal. Digital technology means that local radio and all sorts of radio broadcasts can be broadcast globally. Within a matter of seconds, you could go on your phone or a computer and listen and tune into a radio station being broadcast in America, for example. Mobile technology also means that audiences can interact with the radio, not just by phoning them up, but also by using apps, interactive websites, and all sorts of other kind of interactive features. We don't need massive broadcasting towers anymore because the signals are now broadcast digitally, so it's zeros and ones. So the technology that actually sends out the signal is... And this means that radio has become cheaper to create, and now that gives us so much more choice in the amount of radio that's out there. Audiences want more than just to listen to their media. They want to be able to watch it as well. So this could be YouTube clips or streaming online, like the Radio X video we watched near the beginning of the lesson. This is another example of convergence, different formats and platforms combining and merging to form a new type of media. And that brings us to the final learning check of this lesson. As always, have a look at these 4 boxes and see if you can complete all of the activities they ask you to do. We're now back to our title slide, and now is the perfect time just to check out and see if we have completed the learning objective and how we did with the 3 success criteria. As always, here you can see the specific terminology that was used in this lesson. As an extension activity, try and create an advert for a new local radio station. And here you can see how the content and information contained within this lesson might appear on your exams. That brings us to the end of this lesson, but also to the end of this first topic. This topic has covered an introduction to the media, so hopefully you now understand what the media is all about, and you've been able to explore different examples of a variety of platforms, formats, and a general overview of what the media is, also with some basic theory chucked into the mix as well. Don't forget you can go back through all of these lessons at any point. You've also in your student booklets got your knowledge organisers. And keep checking out this channel because there are other topics available and hopefully being constantly updated with new and exciting media lessons. Go back through every single lesson, complete every task, activity, exam question, extension activity, and make sure you go through all of the media terminology that's been included, maybe make flashcards for each of them or your own dictionary definitions.